بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم حميم تنزيل الكتاب من الله العزيز الحكيم ما خلقنا السماوات والأرض وما بينهما إلا بالحق وأجل مسمى والذين كفروا عما أنذروا معرضون.
الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. We continue Surah Al-Ahqaf and ayah number 17. Ayah number 17 in Surah Al-Ahqaf. I read inshallah from 17 to 19 as it's shown. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم والذي قال لوالديه أف لكما أتعدانني أن أخرج وقد خلت القرون من قبلي وهما يستغيثان الله ويلك آمن إن وعد الله حق فيقول ما هذا إلا أساطير الأولين أولئك الذين حق عليهم القول في قد خلت من قبلهم من الجن والإنس إنهم كانوا خاسرين ولكل درجات مما عملوا وليوفيهم أعمالهم وهم لا يظلمون. The first ayah, but one who says to his parents, Uff to you, do you promise me that I will be brought forth from the earth when generations before me have already passed on? While they call to Allah for help and to their son, woe to you. Believe indeed the promise of Allah is truth, but he says this is not but legends of the former people. So after the previous verses talked about the importance of being righteous to the parents and the rights of the parents as part of the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and part of being grateful to Allah and grateful to the parents, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed His favor upon the person that He made them the reason for his existence on the face of earth. And all of the different benefits that were mentioned before, which is the ways of the believers and dua that was mentioned before. Then here the other group of people, and it's always how the Quran is kitabun mathani, that brings the different groups. When the good is mentioned, the evil is mentioned. The good for people to follow and the evil for people to avoid. So that's what Imam Al-Sa'di rahimahullah, he says, لما ذكر تعالى حال الصالح البار لوالديه. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned حال, the state of a salih, the righteous one, البار لوالديه, the one that is having bir, righteousness towards his parents. ذكر حالة العاق. Then he mentioned the state of al-aq, and al-aq is the opposite of al-bar. And al-uquq is the total opposite of what righteousness and goodness. Then the word of, as it's mentioned, this is from the uquq. So the smallest level or the slightest sign of anything opposite than al-birr, of being kind and righteous towards the parents, it becomes from the uquq. That means it becomes from the major sins. ذكر حالة العاق وأنها شر الحالات. That's the worst of all states and affairs of a person if he has عقوق to his parents. فقال والذي قال لوالديه, and the one that said to his parents, إذ دعياه, when they دعياه, this is مثنى, when they both called him from الدعاء, from الدعوة, from calling him إلى الإيمان بالله واليوم الآخر, when they would call him to believe in Allah and the last day. وخوفاه الجزاء. وخوفاه, again also this is مثنى, they both made him, they asked him to fear الجزاء, or the recompense, the punishment of Allah. يقول وهذا, and listen to how he's saying this, وهذا أعظم إحسان يصدر من الوالدين لولدهما. This is the greatest ihsan. This is the greatest goodness and the greatest favor from the parents when that comes from them towards their offsprings, their son or their daughter. And as the previous verse talked about being grateful. So for someone to see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided his parents to invite him and call him to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and warn him of the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is one of the greatest favors that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestow upon someone. And one of the greatest acts of ihsan, goodness, that a father or a mother would have towards their children. More important than anything else. وهذا أعظم إحسان يصدر من الوالدين لولدهما. And the Quran teaches us to be consistent. So if the hereafter is the main concern and the dunya is a mean, then a person, then his life and his speech and the way that he raises kids and everything will fall in place. So what is the most important thing? For them to have the best in this world and then they go to the hellfire, wal-'adhu billah? Or the hereafter is the concern? And if the hereafter is the concern, everything will be good, this dunya and the hereafter. So it says again, وَهَذَا أَعْظَمُ إِحْسَانٍ يَصْدُرُ مِنَ الْوَالِدَيْنِ لِوَلَدِهِمَا أَنْ يَدْعُوَاهُ, that they would يَدْعُوَاهُ, again this is مُثَنَّى, present tense, that they would call him إِلَى to مَا فِيهِ سَعَادَتُهُ الْأَبَدِيَّةِ, to what in it is his everlasting سعادة, everlasting happiness. إلى ما فيه سعادته الأبدية وفلاحه السرمدي, and his falah, his success, السرمدي also, that means the everlasting one. But then فقابلهما بأقبح مقابلة. But the evil one is the one that would oppose or would face this greatest ihsan with the most ugliest and the worst of way of replying to this. فقال أُفٍّ لكما. He would say أُفٍّ لكما, أي تبا لكما, woe to you, وَلِمَا جِئْتُمَا بِهِ, and what you brought to me. And this is something that we would see. This is one of the things that the disbelievers, or as mentioned in the Quran many times, a group of the disbelievers, they have this in them. When they will, for example, accuse the Prophet ﷺ, the most truthful to be the total opposite. It's not like you're some moderation in their opposing of the truth. No, they go to the other extreme, to the far extreme. So the same thing, someone is being called to the best thing ever, and the reply would be أُفٍّ لكما, not that anything else. So this is how evil that person is. ثم ذكر وجه استبعاد وإنكاره. Then, as the ayah says, quoting from that individual that would reject the call of his parents, and وجه استبعاده, why would he negate this and think that this is far to happen and denying it? فقال أتعدانني أن أخرج. أتعدانني, also this is in the مثنى, in the dual tense. You are both promising me أن أخرج, that I would come out من قبري, from my grave, إلى يوم القيامة, to the day of Al-Qiyamah, resurrection. وقد خلت القرون من قبلي. وقد خلت, that means the previous قرون or the previous generations, خلت, passed, من قبلي, from before me, على التكذيب, they denied the truth, they disbelieved. وسلفوا على الكفر, سلفوا, like from a salaf, they were earlier upon the disbelief. وهم الأئمة المقتدى بهم لكل كفور وجهول ومعاند. And they are the imma, they are their leaders for every, those who they would follow their ways, for every kafur, for every ungrateful disbeliever, jahul, ignorance, mu'anid, stubborn one. So human beings, they always have their own, each one have their own salaf to follow. Whether salaf al-salihin, the righteous ones, or the wicked ones. As the Prophet ﷺ said, لِكُلِّ أُمَّةٍ فِرْعَوْنُ, every nation has its own Fir'aun. So every nation, they follow either the disbelievers from those who before, or follow the believers. وَهُمَا أَيْ وَالِدَهُ. Now after what he said, then وَهُمَا يَسْتَغِيثَانِ اللَّهِ. وَهُمَا, meaning the parents, both of them. And it shows again the importance of both parents to be upon the same thing. He did not say the father only or the mother only. And that's how things should be. وَهُمَا يَسْتَغِيثَانِ اللَّهِ. أي والداه يستغيثان الله. They're making استغاثة. They're seeking help from Allah, and الاستغاثة only to be done from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Seeking help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone in things that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is able to do. وهما يستغيثان الله عليه. They're seeking help from Allah to help him, to help them to save that worst thing ever and the worst misery ever whatsoever. ويقولان له, and they would say to him, ويلك, woe to you, آمن, belief. أي يبذلان غاية جهدهما. They give, البذل is to give, and they do the utmost جهد and effort and struggle. ويسعيان, all that in the مثنى and the dual tense. ويسعيان, and they both from السعي. They take all the means في هدايته, to guide him. أشد السعي, most intense of السعي, taking all of the means. حتى إنهما من حرصهما عليه, to the extent of which that from their حرص, their eagerness, إنهما يستغيثان الله له استغاثة الغريق. They make استغاثة to Allah like the drowning person when he seeks help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is, as we see here, this is a great benefit for every parent. It doesn't have to be that the son is a disbeliever. Right? This is when a person sees in his children something that is not according to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from them, and they would advise them, and they would remind them of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and make the things very clear, not compromising the truth whatsoever. And then they would turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with such an intensity in the dua, like the dua of al-ghariq, the dua of a drowning person. وَيَسْأَلَانِهِ سُؤَالَ الشَّرِيقِ, and they would ask him the su'al of the one that is like when a person is drowning and the water is inside of his mouth, he can't breathe. When a person, sharaq is when, what do you call it, when someone is, the water goes into the air passage and he start to, this is what is meant. Something stuck in one's throat. Suffocate, yes, exactly. So the su'al, the question of someone is suffocating, how sincere his dua would be, focused on one thing. وَيَعْذِلَانِ وَلَدِهِمَا. يَعْذِلَانِ, العذل is to like blame them, or not the blame that they just want to put them down, but to advise them. They have the concern towards them. They want the best for them. وَيَتَوَجَّعَانِ لَهُ. يتوجعان from الوجع, from the pain. They feel the pain towards their offsprings, their children, because they disbelieve in Allah, or they're away from the commands of Allah. وَيُبَيِّنَانِ لَهُ الْحَقِّ, and they make the حق very clear to him. فَيَقُولان آمن وهما يستغيثان الله, يقول وَيْلَكَ آمن, woe to you, آمن, believe. إِنَّ وَعْدَ اللَّهِ حَقِّ, indeed the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is true. ثم يقيمان عليه من الأدلة ما أمكنهما, and then they establish the adillah, the evidences upon him to the best of their ability. وولدهما لا يزداد إلا عتوا ونفورا واستكبارا عن الحق وقدحا فيه. And their son, that does not increase him anything but عتو, the strength that a person gets to oppose the truth, evil actions, نفورا, repelling away, استكبارا عن الحق, arrogant, turning away from the truth, وقدحا فيه, and attacking the truth. فيقول ما هذا إلا أساطير الأولين. So he would say, this is nothing but أساطير الأولين, legends of the former people, fairy tales. أي إلا منقول من كتب متقدمين, nothing but what has been mentioned before from the previous books. ليس من عند الله, not from Allah. ولا أوحاه الله إلى رسوله, or he did not reveal it to his messenger. وكل أحد يعلم أن محمدا صلى الله عليه وسلم, and everyone knows that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam ummiyun, لا يكتب ولا يقرأ, illiterate, does not write or read, ولا يتعلم من أحد, and he does not learn from anyone. فمن أين يتعلمه, from where does he learn this? وأن للخلق أن يأتوا بمثل هذا القرآن, and far is for the creation of Allah, for the human being, to bring the like of the Quran. ولو كان بعضهم لبعض ظهيرا, even if one to the other, ظهير, they help, and they're helpers to one another. So again, is to understand the meaning, and to see how the truth is being presented, and the greatest favor, and the offer that comes as a return here, which is the word offer actually is اسم فعل. اسم فعل, اسم is noun, فعل is verb, is أسماء الأفعال. It's asma, but gives the meaning of fi'l, gives the meaning of verb. So that means it's a noun that means something of in the verb tense. So in the meaning of أنا متضجر يتضجر, I'm angry. So it's the act of anger, but it's to be expressed by a word. So this is the word of, again, as it's also mentioned in many verses in the Quran. It's the as they call it أقل الأذى, the least of any harm or any discomfort. That's off, not from major things. So that means this is the least is the worst, even when it comes to dealing with the parents. And al-asatir is the plural of ustura, which is the story that usually is a story that has no basis to it, just like fairy tales. Ibn Kathir rahimahullah, he mentioned that Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma, he said that this was revealed with regards to specific names of the Sahaba. Some said it's in the son of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, but Ibn Kathir says this is not correct. Allahu a'lam. But the ayah is not referring to a specific individual. This is for anyone that would fall onto this evil actions. So, and there are many things to be said about that. So therefore, the proper understanding of it, that this is not for a particular individual, but rather in general for everyone that would apply to him. Then he says, أولئك الذين حق عليهم القول في أمم قد خلت من قبلهم من الجن والإنس. أولئك الذين, that means they are the ones, the translation of this ayah, those are the ones upon whom the word has come into effect, who will be among nations which had passed on before them, of jinn and men, indeed they all were losers. So أولئك, those who have that same state, بهذه الحالة الذميمة, those who had this condemned, this evil state, حق عليهم القول. Al-qawl is the speech. حق عليهم, that means had been already upon them, the matter becomes in effect. The command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon them. أي حقت عليهم كلمة العذاب. The word of punishment is already now in effect upon them. They are in the state of punishment, those who are in that state. في جملة, with the rest of the the nations, قد خلت من قبلهم. They become attributed, they join the previous nations from before, from the jinn and the humankind, على الكفر والتكذيب, upon disbelief and denying the truth. فسيدخل هؤلاء في غمارهم. Those who are present will enter in the al-ghimar, is in the midst of things, when there's so much numbers of people that you're not able to recognize one from the other because they all belong to the same thing. So they're just going to be joined with their brothers and those who followed them and were before and the same evil actions. وَيَغْرُقُونَ فِي تَيَّارِهِمْ, and they will drown in their التيار is when the water, the passage of the water, when the flow of the water. So it's just something metaphorically here, that means they will drown with them. So as you see also, one of the clear things in the Quran, that people, the categories of human beings to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not based on what the human beings they categorize themselves. To Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's about al-iman wal-kufr, belief and disbelief. And after this life, when everybody departs, right, they will either join to their brethren from the disbelievers or from the believers. And that's it. وَالَّذِي خَلَقَكُمْ فَمِنْكُمْ كَافِرٌ وَمِنْكُمْ مُؤْمِنٌ. And each group has their levels. But this is how they are in the hereafter, because this is how they were in this life. So that's the most important thing. أولئك الذين حق عليهم القول في أمم قد خلت من قبلهم من الجن والإنس. Doesn't matter whether they're from the north or the south or this race or that race. They join with them because they joined in the same actions and characteristics. إنهم كانوا خاسرين. Indeed, they were losers. والخسران فوات. Now he says, what is the definition of al-khusran? What's the definition of loss or to be a loser? فوات رأس مال الإنسان. Even in the worldly sense, فوات رأس مال الإنسان. رأس المال is the capital of the person, the money that he used for trade. If he loses anything of this, that's a loss. If he loses it all, that's the real loss. He lost all of his money. He had $1 million to use it for trade. He's supposed to profit from it. If the profit instead of being 10% was 5%, he's not losing because he profited. Small profit, it's okay. Actually, one of the things that Uthman radiallahu anhu has a beautiful statement, but we'll talk about it later, inshallah. When someone asked him, you were poor and you became rich. How do you become rich? He mentioned things in business, not just religious means, but one of which is that he would accept any profit. One of the reasons why he became rich, that he would not belittle any profit. If it's a profit, it's okay, that's fine. As long as he profits. So that the money would keep on, what's the word of, دوران رأس المال. دوران رأس المال, that means you keep on circulating the capital money. Keeps, as long as, because the money will be moving. So the point here is, the loss is when the loss is in the capital itself, in رأس المال. So this is the definition of الخسران. فوات رأس مال الإنسان. وإذا فقد رأس ماله, and if the person loses رأس is the head and مال is the wealth. So the head of his money, which is the capital that that he used for his trade, فالأرباح من باب أولى وأحرى, which means the profits is من باب أولى, more likely than. How can a person loses from his capital and he would have profits? Of course not, doesn't make sense. So that means no profits whatsoever. فهم, so these people, قد فاتهم الإيمان, they missed الإيمان, they were not upon الإيمان and faith, ولم يحصلوا شيئا من النعيم, and they did not attain anything of the delight, ولا سلموا من عذاب الجحيم, and they are never safe from the punishment of the hellfire. So this is the real khusran. So what is رأس المال in this life? The رأس المال in this life, whether you look at it as life itself, person lost his life. This life was supposed to be used to be upon al-iman wal-amal al-salih. And this is the profit that a person gets. But the loss is, if a person doesn't get the profit, he loses. And life, because life will go away. And whoever doesn't use it for al-iman wal-amal al-salih, then this is the punishment in the hereafter. أولئك الذين حق عليهم القول في أمم قد خلت من قبلهم من الجن والإنس إنهم كانوا خاسرين ولكل درجات مما عملوا وليوفيهم أعمالهم وهم لا يظلمون. ولكل درجات. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and for all there are degrees of reward and punishment for what they have done, and it is so that He may fully compensate them for their deeds and they would not be wronged. ولكل درجات مما عملوا. He says, Imam Sa'di, ولكل أي من أهل الخير وأهل الشر. For both of them, the people of خير, good, and the people of evil, درجات levels, مما عملوا, from what they've done, from their actions. أي كل على حسب مرتبته من الخير والشر. So you have the group of al-khayr versus the group of al-shar, as the previous verses, just in very simple terms here, the people of Jannah versus the people of the hellfire, or those who were righteous to their parents and they were believers versus those who were disbelievers and as a result of that they were not. So in these two actions, they are of different levels. And in every action, people are of different levels. So this is more meaning to every action that we do. A person can make his salah just to get it over with. That's one level, if it's accepted even, right? Versus someone that he would perfect his salah. And as the hadith of the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام, إن أحدكم لا ينصرف من صلاتي وما كتب له إلا عشرها تسعها ثمنها, till the end. That one of you would finish his salah, 1/10 is given, 1/9 of the rewards, 1/8, 1/7, 1/6, all darajat, levels of their actions. And the same thing with evil. The evil is not all in the same level. So there are also different levels, but the levels goes down. أي كل على حسب مرتبته, and the level that a person would have من الخير والشر. ومنازلهم في الدار الآخرة على قدر أعمالهم. And their manazil, and manazil is not their homes, even though we call the homes manzil, or the dwelling, but al-manazil here refers to their martaba, to their level, the level that they will stay in. في الدار الآخرة, in the hereafter, على قدر أعمالهم, according to the measure of their actions. ولهذا قال وليوفيهم أعمالهم. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give them their أعمال, their actions in full. وهم لا يظلمون, and they would never be wronged. بألا يزاد في سيئاتهم, they would never be treated with injustice where their sins will be increased, ولا ينقص من حسناتهم, and they would never have any decrease in their حسنات, in their good deeds. So this is a call in itself for the believers to perfect their actions and to increase their levels and to elevate their levels in every action. So بر الوالدين, as the word is bir. So a person can choose what level he can do the best he can to reach the highest level of righteousness to the parents, versus someone he does not do much harm to them. So it can be given some level of bir, and the bir, by the way, to the walidain, to the parents, is not according to how the parents react to you. Right? So this is one of the deceiving things. Many people, they think that as long as his mother or his father looks that they're happy with them, that means they fulfill their rights to their parents. That's not true. Their reaction has nothing to do with the command of Allah. Did not say in the ayat, be righteous to them till they are pleased with you. Right? There's no limits to it. Al-birr is one-way actions. It's to be looked at the person that is doing the birr to the walidain. And the walidain, as a fact, they always want the best for the normal way for their children, for example. So anything they will be happy with, and they're satisfied with it. But then the son would think that, oh, mashallah, I'm such a great righteous son to my parents, when you're not. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded you to have the birr, to make them in a level where they would never think, oh, this is mashallah, they never expected like this. That's why different cultures, people might see the birr in a different way. So that's why it's darajat, it's levels of birr. And the best example is the example of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, and how they understood these different levels and they did the best of actions and to follow them in this. There are so many amazing stories when it comes to bir al-walidain, and it's sufficient that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned as bir. And the same thing for every action. With evil, the same thing also. And how the things are to be treated in that way. So, وَلِكُلٍّ دَرَجَاتٌ مِمَّا عَمِلُوا. And the darajat here, as they call it, maratib al-a'mal. في الخير, and also the maratib al-a'mal in al-shar. And to have the knowledge of maratib al-a'mal, this is knowledge after knowledge. And this is a high level of knowledge, that a person is able to see the different levels of action, whether it's the quality of the action itself and the different levels and the different rewards. As Abdul Rahman ibn Zayd ibn Aslam, he said, درجات النار تذهب سفالا ودرجات الجنة تذهب علوا. The darajat of the hellfire goes down in the hellfire, and darajat al-Jannah goes higher, one level after the other. So we'll stop here inshallah ta'ala, but again, as we see the benefits and we reflect upon the ayat, this is something else. But as far as understanding the ayat, then it becomes either for us or against us, and to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us among those who listen and to follow the best as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded us to be. صلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. سبحانك اللهم ربنا وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.